The Polaroid photograph was pristine, as if it had been developed yesterday, not buried under 5 years of dirt and rain in the hollowed trunk of a dead oak tree. Detective Sarah Chen held the image with latex gloves, her hands trembling despite 15 years on the force. 3 young faces smiled back at her, arms linked, standing at the edge of what appeared to be a cliff. But it was the timestamp that made her blood run cold, September 15, 2024. 2 days after Maya Rodriguez, Alex Morrison, and Jordan Kim had been officially declared missing. The search had ended 5 years ago with nothing but questions. Now, with this single photograph, Detective Chen realized the investigation had barely begun. Maya Rodriguez adjusted her vintage Polaroid camera, the September sun casting everything in honey-colored light. At 23, she was the dreamer of their trio, an art student who saw poetry in abandoned places and beauty in decay. The camera had been her grandmother's, passed down with whispered stories of captured souls and frozen moments. "Come on, slowpokes," she called to her companions, her voice echoing across the vast wilderness of Pine Ridge National Forest. "The light's perfect right now." Alex Morrison caught up first, his hiking boots crunching against pine needles. At 25, he was the pragmatist, the one who'd packed the GPS, the emergency flares, the water purification tablets. What his friends didn't know was that this trip wasn't just about adventure for him, it was about escape. The acceptance letter to medical school back home sat crumpled in his bedroom trash can. His parents' expectations felt like chains, and these mountains represented the only freedom he'd ever known. Jordan Kim brought up the rear, her breathing labored but determined. At 22, she was fighting battles her friends couldn't see. The scars on her arms were hidden beneath long sleeves, even in the September heat. This hiking trip was supposed to be her fresh start, her way of proving she could survive anything. She'd been clean for 6 months, and every step forward felt like a victory against the darkness that had nearly consumed her. "Wait up." Jordan gasped, her dark hair plastered to her forehead. "Some of us aren't mountain goats." They'd been friends since college, bonded by late-night study sessions and shared dreams of escaping their small Ohio town. This week-long hiking expedition through Pine Ridge was meant to be their last adventure before real life pulled them in different directions. They'd planned every detail for months, marking trails on maps, researching camping spots, even practicing with Maya's old camera. What they hadn't planned for was how quickly everything could go wrong. 5 years later, Detective Chen stood in that same forest, but now it felt different, older, darker, like it was holding secrets in its shadows. The hiker who'd found the photograph, a local named Bill Henderson, had been coming to these woods for 30 years. He'd never seen the dead oak tree hollow before, which seemed impossible given how often he'd walked this exact trail. "It's like it just appeared," Bill had told her, his weathered face pale with confusion. "Been hiking this path since I was a kid. That tree wasn't hollow last season, I'd bet my life on it." Inside the hollow, wrapped in plastic, they'd found more than just the photograph. There was Maya's journal, its pages filled with increasingly frantic handwriting. Alex's GPS device, somehow still functional after 5 years. And Jordan's silver bracelet, the one she'd worn every day since rehab, engraved with the date she'd gotten clean. But it was the journal entries that made Detective Chen's investigation take a sharp turn into something far stranger than a simple missing persons case. Day 3, something's wrong with the compass. It keeps pointing in directions that don't make sense. Alex is getting frustrated, but I think there's something beautiful about being lost. Maybe we're exactly where we need to be. Day 4, Jordan found symbols carved into the trees. They look old, like really old. Native American maybe. She's been acting strange since we found them, like she recognizes them from somewhere. Day 5, the dream started last night. All 3 of us had the same dream about a woman in white standing at the edge of a cliff. We didn't tell each other until this morning. How is that possible? Day 6, we can't find our way back. The trail markers we left are gone, like someone moved them. Alex keeps checking the GPS, but it just shows us walking in circles. The forest feels different now. Bigger. Like it's breathing. The final entry was barely legible, written in what appeared to be Maya's shaking handwriting. Day 7, she's calling us. The woman from our dreams. We can hear her singing from the cliff. Jordan says we have to go to her. Alex says we should make camp and wait for rescue, but Jordan. Jordan says she's been here before. In dreams, in another life. I don't understand, but I trust her. We're going to the cliff tonight. If something happens to us, know that we chose this. There's something here, something ancient and beautiful and terrible. Maya. 3 weeks after finding the photograph, Detective Chen's investigation took another impossible turn. Jordan Kim walked into the Pine Ridge Sheriff's Department, looking exactly as she had 5 years ago, not a day older, wearing the same clothes she'd disappeared in, even smelling faintly of campfire smoke. But her eyes held centuries of sadness. I remember you, she said to Detective Chen, though they'd never met. You were in my dreams. The woman in white told me you'd be the one to find us. Jordan's account defied every law of physics and logic, but the evidence was undeniable. She was real, she was alive, and she remembered everything. Time moves differently there, Jordan explained, her silver bracelet catching the fluorescent light of the interrogation room. What felt like 5 years to you was maybe 5 hours to us. But also, eternities. I know that doesn't make sense. She described following the woman in white to a cliff that wasn't on any map, a place where the forest seemed to fold in on itself. Maya had taken photographs the entire way, documenting their journey into something that existed between dreams and reality. She wanted our memories, Jordan continued, her voice distant. The woman. She was lonely, trapped there since. I don't know, maybe since before people had names for loneliness. She showed us things, other hikers, other groups who'd found that place over the decades. All of them young, all of them searching for something. What happened to Maya and Alex? Detective Chen asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. Jordan's expression crumbled. They stayed. Maya said she'd found the perfect subject for her art, eternal beauty, frozen moments that never end. Alex said it was the first place he'd ever felt free from expectations. The woman offered them a choice, and they chose to stay. But you came back. I had to, Jordan whispered, tears finally falling. My sister. My little sister Emma. She's supposed to start college next year, and she has the same darkness I had. The same need to escape. The woman in white, she doesn't just want memories. She's building something, a collection of souls who understand loss. Emma's been having the dreams. Dreams of the forest, of hiking trails that don't exist. Jordan pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a hand-drawn map in her sister's handwriting, showing a route into Pine Ridge National Forest. Emma's planning a hiking trip next week. Solo. She thinks it's her idea, but the woman's been calling to her. Just like she called to us. Detective Chen's subsequent investigation revealed a pattern that stretched back decades. Missing hikers, always in groups of 2 or 3, always young adults dealing with major life transitions. Some were found years later, walking out of the forest with stories no one believed. Others were never seen again. The local Native American community had stories about the area, warnings passed down through generations about a spirit that lived between worlds, feeding on the dreams of those who felt displaced in their own lives. The elders called her Wandering Sorrow, a woman who'd lost her way so completely that she'd become the embodiment of being lost itself. She doesn't take everyone, explained Thomas Crowfeather, a tribal elder who'd been trying to get that section of forest declared sacred land for years. Only those who are already halfway gone. Kids who don't know where they belong, who are searching for something they can't name. She gives them a choice, stay lost with her, or return to a world that doesn't understand them. Maya's photographs, developed from the film still in her camera when Jordan returned, showed impossible things, landscapes that shifted between shots, figures that appeared and disappeared, and in the final image, Maya and Alex standing with the woman in white at the edge of a cliff that seemed to drop into starlight rather than earth. But it was the last photograph that haunted Detective Chen most. Maya had set the camera timer and stepped back to join her friends. All 4 figures stood together, Maya, Alex, Jordan, and the woman in white. But in the photo, only 3 cast shadows. Emma Kim never made her solo hiking trip. Jordan's return had broken the spell, severing the connection that had been drawing her sister toward the forest. But Detective Chen knew it was only temporary. The pattern would continue, the woman in white would call to other lost souls, and the forest would claim more dreamers who couldn't find their place in the ordinary world. She established a task force, mapping the disappearances, working with local tribes to identify the danger zones. But late at night, when she reviewed the evidence, Detective Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were only seeing the surface of something vast and ancient. Jordan Kim received therapy and eventually returned to school, but she never threw away her silver bracelet. Sometimes, she told her therapist, she could still hear singing carried on the wind, not threatening, but patient. Eternally patient. The woman in white was still there, still calling, still offering lost souls a place where they'd never have to find their way again. 6 months after Jordan's return, Detective Chen received a package with no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph, the image sharp and clear despite being taken with Maya's vintage camera. It showed Maya and Alex standing together in a place that looked like the edge of the world. They appeared happy, peaceful, frozen in a perfect moment that would never end. But it was the figure barely visible in the background that made Detective Chen's hands shake. A young woman with long dark hair, wearing hiking boots and a jacket identical to one sold at the local outfitter. Her face was turned toward the camera, and though the features were indistinct, something about her posture suggested recognition, as if she was looking directly at whoever would eventually see this photograph. On the back, written in Maya's careful handwriting, was a single line. "She's found another dreamer. Tell Jordan we understand now why she had to leave, but the door is always open." Detective Chen locked the photograph in evidence storage, but she knew it wouldn't stay there. Somehow, it would find its way to the next person who needed to see it, to understand that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to be survived. The woman in white was still waiting in the spaces between dreams and reality, and somewhere in the world, another lost soul was beginning to hear her song.